just want to start by saying that I think we need to identify the ongoing challenge that climate change is bringing to the world, and particularly to the world of food production. 2016 globally was the hottest year on record yet, 1 degree above previous average temperatures. And the increased extreme weather conditions lead to flooding, heavy downpours, storms, and particularly what we have seen in the increased flooding and downpours in the west of Ireland was something that was accurately predicted a number of years ago. It was predicted, and it is shown that this is not a one-off. It will be repeated. The incessant rainfall in the west, and particularly in areas like Kerry, which saw the highest rainfall in years, is, to quote Liam Dunn, disastrous for the farming community. Liam Dunn, the IFA, described in Kerry what happened as the crop literally beaten to the ground, and at the end of the season there being nothing left to harvest. And unlike what the Kerry Deputy Danny Healy-Rae believes, I do not accept that this is an act of the man above, but rather this is clear scientific evidence that climate change is a consequence. There is clear scientific evidence that climate change is a consequence of a chaotic and an ill-thought-out economic and production system that we have right across the world. So this isn't just a crisis for hundreds of farmers who are in this chamber today for 2016. It will be a crisis in 2017, and it's absolutely clear that the farming community need the support, the financial support and the planning support of this state, not just for last year, not just for this year, but on a more permanent, thought-out basis on which we need to support the farmers who are engaged in tillage. First of all, it's obvious, people have said it here, between €3.5 to €4 million has been lost by hundreds of farmers. But ironically, 2016, for the same reason, was a very good year for the production of crops internationally, and elsewhere in the world the improved crop production has meant that the price of grain has actually dropped globally, which is not going to mean that we're going to get cheaper food in the supermarkets, or indeed that we're going to end global hunger. It will just mean that the profits of the big global agro corporations, the big producers right across the planet, will go up, and their profits will be sacrosanct. So needless to say that we're not going to see a decrease in food poverty, and we're not going to see a decrease in the poverty of the farmers who are here today. But it isn't just, and I want to make this point very clear, that it isn't just a crisis of climate change and weather and the declining grain prices that farmers have to deal with. There is so much more impact on the farming and rural communities that I find it highly ironic that both parties who have led this country over the years, both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, are trying to outbid each other today in their support for those farmers, but at the same time show little concern about a deal like CETA, a deal that will really affect the small and medium farmers coming down the track. They show little concern for no critical analysis of how that deal, which they both uncritically support, will impact on the same communities that they are talking to here today. They show little concern, in reality, for the fact that rural post offices are being closed down, and that the announcement yesterday by the An Post that they are going to close probably hundreds of them, and indeed the discussion we had yesterday on the winding down of Bus Éireann and how that's going to impact on rural transport. Little concern is being shown for the impact of all of these. So I think we need to really think hard and fast about why the two main parties who are responsible for what has happened in this state over the last decades seem to outbid each other when it comes to something like how are we going to support the small and medium farmer, but on a bigger picture they are really failing the rural communities and failing the farmer communities in general. There was a report, just to add insult to injury for farmers, there was a report in The Independent today, I'm sure wasn't lost on them, where industry sources in the banking community say that as many as 200 farmers will be affected by the sale of €2.5 billion loan portfolio of a vulture fund called Cerebus, which took place last October, and hundreds more will come under pressure if an anticipated sale of other Irish mortgage portfolios go ahead. It is clear from Matt Carey, a debt resolution advisor to many farmers, who says that this year we are going to see a significant increase in the vulture fund activity against everybody, including farmers. So while they are swooping on the family farm, which is the ultimate cause of what the Fianna Fáil-led administration did to this country when they handed over the banks to their buddies and the developers, and the continuation of the same policy by Minister Noonan and his government by giving tax breaks to these vultures and encouraging them to come into this country. Both parties have resisted any legislation that would have meant that we could see an end to the automatic eviction of farmers. Indeed, both parties failed to support amendment to a courts bill that I brought before the House before Christmas. And I have little expectation that either will support the anti-eviction bill that we brought to the floor of the Dáil last night. So these communities will continue to be hammered, both by climate change, by the closure of rural post offices, by the rundown of rural transport and by the behaviour of the vulture funds and the banks. And we are sitting back and allowing it to happen. But I want to support the motions today that are the indicative part of the motions that are saying that we need to support the farming communities in this particular crisis, but it needs to be flagged up. This is not the end of it. Unless we tackle climate change, and part of tackling climate change is to increase public transport, not to decrease it. Part of tackling climate change is to have a sensible approach to food production and to cut out the sort of market madness that allows the fluctuation into the production of commodities, essential commodities like food. So I believe discussing this and the impact on the rural communities is a very, very important issue for us, and that we need to look at the whole underfunding of rural Ireland and the destruction to the communities, and stop the hypocrisy on the one hand in saying that we support them, and on the other hand supporting the banks and supporting the closure of post office and supporting the destruction of rural transport.
Thank you very much.